I'm here from Plaid, and I am excited to be part of the regular Monday night class that we've been doing for several weeks now. And I know that many of you guys are repeat students and come back each Monday to be with us. So it's a little bit different of a lineup tonight. I'm not the typical host. Kira is off tonight, so I'm filling in. And we also have another special treat. We're actually going to be learning tonight from Andy Jones. And Andy is the lead instructor here at Plaid, the lead painting instructor for our Let's Paint program. He's an amazing artist. His style is quite a bit different from Jesse's and from Kirsten's, so you're gonna learn something entirely new tonight. The way he teaches, what he's teaching, everything is different. So I'm personally excited to sit in on this class, and so I'm gonna be here answering questions as I normally do, and I will relay those to Andy in the chat and or ask them out loud if time permits. So without further ado, I'm gonna hand it over to Andy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Andy Jones, and I am very glad to be here this evening. Jesse has tonight off, so you get to paint with me. And this evening, we are going to be painting an 8x8 canvas with hydrangeas, and I'm going to be introducing you to the new FolkArt Pure Artist Pigment paints. So I'm going to set my original painting off to the side, and I have my 8x8 canvas here, and I am using a gallery wrapped canvas, which has the nice deep edges on it. I know many of you like to paint on a gallery wrapped canvas rather than paint on canvas that needs to be framed. So we're using FolkArt Pure Artist Pigments, and I'm going to start out with titanium white, and I like to put out a good amount of paint on my palette. And I know some people think that's wasteful, but I will let you know that if you put out a small little dab of paint on your palette, it will dry out quicker than a larger puddle of paint, and you will end up wasting more paint because your paint dries out on you. All right, so I'm putting out yellow light, yellow ochre, and titanium white on my palette. And I'm going to take a portion of my titanium white, and I'm going to add a little bit of yellow ochre to this. And I am a stickler for good painting habits. So you will see me wiping off my palette knife every time I have mixed paint with it, so that I don't end up putting white paint into my yellow ochre. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of yellow ochre, and I'm going to mix that into my white, making a nice cream color. And when you mix paint, it's best to have a nice flexible blade metal palette knife. They are available at Michael's. Spend a few dollars and get yourself a good metal blade palette knife. It will last you for many, many years and be of good service to you. And it's much better than a plastic palette knife. All right, so I'm going to wipe my palette knife off, and I'm going to take some more white, and I'm just going to create a lighter cream color. So I'm actually ending up with 2 shades of yellow ochre plus white. And I could have mixed, I could have just found some paint on the shelf that was this color, but I like to go ahead and mix exactly the colors that I want. And if these colors are a little dull for you, you could take and add a little bit of yellow light to this just to brighten the color up a little bit. That's entirely up to you. When you are mixing your own colors, you are in the driver's seat, and you can decide exactly how light, how dark, or what you want to change about your paint colors. All right, so I have a large flat brush here, and I'm going to pick up some of my darker color, and I'm going to add just a little bit of water to my brush and just brush mix that in. The FolkArt Pure Artist Pigments are very, very thick. They will seem much, much thicker than your regular FolkArt Acrylics or FolkArt multi-surface paint. And they have an extended drying time, so they're not going to dry as quickly as your regular acrylics will. All right, so I'm just going to paint the top surface of my canvas tonight. It's yellow light, white, and yellow ochre. So I'm going to just begin to brush this on. I'm not painting the edges of my canvas right now, just out of the sake of running out of time. But I'm brushing this color on. If you were having to work to apply the paint to the canvas, you don't have enough paint on your brush. You should be able to brush this on pretty quickly and easily without having to work too hard.
So Andy, can you just go back and remind people what you mixed again one time? Because folks are they just want to make sure that they're caught up. And so you used yellow.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I started out with titanium white and I added some yellow ochre to it. That gave me this puddle of paint.
Okay.
Then I started out with white and I added a little bit of my yellow ochre and white mixture to it to create a lighter cream color. So those are the two puddles of paint that I have here. If you wanted to, you could add a little yellow light to that. All right, so I've just brushed this darker cream color on the canvas, and I'm just quickly going to wipe my brush on a blue shop towel. I love the blue shop towels more than I do paper towels. They don't tend to have any lint on them, and paint doesn't seem to soak right through them and get on you. I also don't hold a paper towel in my hand because that gets paint on you and then that gets on everything else. All right, so I'm picking up my lighter cream color and I'm loading my brush pretty full of paint, and I'm going to start at one edge of the canvas and I'm just going to brush this color on in a motion of kind of X marks. So I'm just spreading this color on, picking up more as I need it, and just kind of brushing this on, and I'm creating a mottled background because I didn't want my background just to be a solid color. Now that I've applied this lighter color, I can wipe the excess paint off of my brush and then just in a light, using a very light pressure on my brush, just come back and just kind of soften this color a little bit where it's a little bit uneven.
Okay. So we're just going to have to give people a chance to catch up a little bit. So once you get that done, maybe you can hold it up close to the camera and let them see.
Okay, so you can see that it's not all, you can see there's some texture to it. It's not perfectly blended. You can see some of the light color and you can see some of the dark color. So I'm going to give you a little chance to catch up with me. And what I'm going to do while you're finishing painting your kind of a mottled background, I'm going to take my heat gun and I'm just going to dry my canvas. So you'll hear the whir of my heat gun while you are continuing to paint.
So, Andy, if people were having a little trouble with finding yellow ochre and true burgundy, how can they work around that? They mix their own color?
Yes, if you can't find yellow ochre, you can take FolkArt yellow light or medium yellow, and that would be the same medium yellow in regular FolkArt or in multi-surface, and you can add a little bit of dioxazine purple to that, and you will get yellow ochre. The alizarin is alizarin crimson or true burgundy.
It was the true burgundy.
Okay, true burgundy, you could substitute berry wine or barnyard red. There might be a black cherry color. Any really dark burgundy color will work.
Great. And one more question. Are you painting the sides yet or no?
For my time constraints tonight, I'm not painting the sides right now, but I will come back and paint them when I've finished the lesson tonight.
Sounds good.
And I think Kristen is asking about a substitute for Prussian blue,
right.
And unfortunately there is not a substitute for Prussian blue. You might try Ink Spot, is probably the closest you're going to come. All right, let me continue to dry mine because I got to get this dry before we can move on.
Okay.
This is giving everybody a little chance to work on theirs without feeling so much pressure.
So for everybody who's asking, that second shade is really just a lighter shade of the first mix that he made. So he just added, he took some more white and then just added from his original down to create a lighter shade.
Yes, always start with white and add your darker color to your lighter color.
There you go. So if they have a hair dryer, Andy, they're going to want to blow dry theirs too, I assume.
Yes, you will need to dry it. It'll take a little longer with a hair dryer than it will with a heat gun, but you could do either one is going to be just fine. And no matter how much you try to make one painting look just like another, it's going to be a little bit different. So even my backgrounds on these two paintings are already just a little bit different. One thing I will tell you is that the FolkArt Pure Artist pigments are going to dry to a completely flat, matte finish. So there won't be any sheen to them at all once they are dry. All right, so I'm just going to move the finished painting up a little bit and have this painting here where I can, where I can work on it. And I'm just going to give you a few more minutes to work on your background.
Yeah, that would be
get
great.
Started off on such a fast pace. Everything else is going to relax and slow down.
We do have we have plenty of time, so don't worry if it goes a little over the hour. They never seem to mind, so you know.
That's
don't
fine.
worry about that.
I know that sometimes getting started and getting a background established is it just takes a little while to get revved up, but everything else is pretty easy, smooth sailing from here on out.
Yeah,
I try not to teach you.
Oh yeah.
I was going to say, I try not to, I'm sorry, John. We just keep talking over each other. So go ahead with your question.
I was just going to remind people that if in fact they are, if they are falling behind, or if they want to just stop for a minute and let things, you know, give themselves time to dry or whatever it is, this, you know, these classes are always available after the fact. So you might just want to sit and learn tonight and then go back and paint, you know, tomorrow or later this evening or whatever it is once the recording is up. It's up to you. But Andy will do his best to keep everybody on pace.
Yes, I try to do that. And I will tell you that if you're painting along and suddenly everything starts to go a little sideways, sometimes it is better to stop and just follow along and then come back and paint at your own pace when you can stop and start the recording, and then you're not feeling the time pressure and you'll do a better job. So we'll make this as pleasurable as we can for you. I don't ever teach anything that is terribly difficult. Sometimes I teach things that take 1,001 steps, but every one of those steps is easy and doable. John was in one of the first classes that I taught here at Plaid, and I think his comment that I remember was that he did a better painting than he ever thought he could. And I thought that was quite a nice compliment to me, and John did a very, very nice job. So we had.
And I am no artist, I can tell you that.
But you did a great painting.
Right. You told me exactly what to do, and I did it, and it worked out. So just follow what he says.
if people would only do that. I find sometimes you teach kids how to paint, and you tell them do A and then B, and it'll look like C, and they're like, yes, okay. Sometimes, and you tell adults you do A and then B, and it'll look like C, and their first thought is, I think I know an easier way to do that.
Right.
Instead of just doing what you're told, you try to do something a little easier, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so can we have, I don't know how we do this here, a thumbs up or whatever so that we can see that we're about ready to move on to our next
I think we
step.
we should get started.
Okay, all right, so we're going to now sketch on just some guidelines so that we know kind of where we're painting and to get everything kind of where it should be on the canvas. The vase that we're going to paint is not centered in the canvas. It is slightly off to the right. And if you measure by fingers, it is 2 fat fingers from the right-hand side of the canvas, and it is 4 fat fingers from the left-hand side of the canvas. Okay? So I'm going to put my 2 fat fingers down, and then I like to use a T-square, which just helps you get everything lined up. And so this way, I know that the edges of my vase are lined up parallel to the edges of my canvas. So I'm going to make a little mark here. And then I'm going to move my T-square over so that I'm 4 fat fingers away from the edge there. And I'm just going to make another little pencil mark. And I am using a blue chalk pencil here so that it shows up very clearly for you all where our vase is. And then to just get a better idea, I am 4 fat fingers up from the bottom is where the flowers start fitting in my vase. So my flowers are going to start right about here. All right, so I'm going to draw 1 cluster of hydrangeas that is not a round circle. You always, when you're painting flowers, you want some shape that is interesting to look at. Let's see if I can tip this up a little bit and you will see that a little bit better. And then I'm going to have another cluster of hydrangeas over here that doesn't quite go to the edge of the canvas, nor does it go all the way to the top. And it is not a round ball either. You always have to make sure that your painting is interesting for people to look at. And a round circle is a nice shape, but you don't want to look at it for very long because you know what a round circle looks like. So I've got an irregular shape over here, and I've got an irregular shape over here, and those are my 2 main clusters of hydrangeas. So far, nothing difficult. And then we've got
It looks like Lorax trees so far.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Mr. Thneed. Okay, it takes a special group of people to understand our humor, so forgive us if it's falling a little flat. All right, so I'm going to give you just a moment to sketch your hydrangeas onto your canvas. I don't want to lose anybody before we're ready to get started. So take
2
just a moment
fingers
and
in.
2 fat fingers from the right-hand side, 4 fat fingers from the left-hand side.
And then 4 fat fingers tall.
Yes.
Yeah.
If your fingers are not fat, congratulations, and then just add an extra finger. We have folks who order their, I don't know if it's bourbon or scotch, but they order it by the finger. They're like, you know, they'll have 2 fingers of scotch or bourbon. I don't drink either one of those, so I don't know. Some brown liquor that they order by the fingers.
I think that's an old school method, yes.
Yes, and I guess I'm old enough to be old school. All right, so do we have our design sketched on our canvas?
I think so.
John, can you tell me? Okay, so here we go. I'm going to put out a couple of new colors on my palette. I'm putting out Ultramarine blue, which is, you know, if you kind of think about, in my mind, I always think about what kind of color I'm using. So Ultramarine blue is going to be what I would consider a primary blue. It's a very clean, very bright, true blue. And I'm also going to put out some Prussian blue, which is a little bit darker blue. It's also got a little bit of a green cast to it, and it is super intense. So we're going to be using these two colors of blue. I'm also going to go ahead and put out a little bit of alizarin crimson, which is a nice dark burgundy color, and some dioxazine purple, which is the color of grape jelly. So kind of always in your mind, when you think of dioxazine purple, you're going to think that's my grape jelly color, or ultramarine blue is my bright blue, Prussian blue is my intense darker blue. So just kind of get those thoughts in your head, and as you paint, you will start to think of what color you need to use based on the color that you want. All right, so I'm shifting to a number 12 flat brush now. So it's kind of a medium width flat brush, and I'm going to dip it in water, and I'm going to pick up some ultramarine blue on my brush, pull it away from the puddle of paint, and then add more water to this because I'm thinning this down because I want my paint to be pretty thin and transparent. Okay, now here we go. Here's going to be the hardest thing.
Oh, there you go. That's the ultramarine blue, right?
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to show you, this is going to be the hardest thing that we do tonight. How I want you to hold the paintbrush. I'm going to put the handle of my brush where my pinky joins my palm. Okay. And then I'm just going to grip the brush. So there's no more brush handle here for me to hold on to. So where my pinky meets my palm, and I've gripped the brush. Some people will say to hold it like you're holding a magic wand. And here we go. We are going to begin to establish our hydrangea flower shape. And this is what I want you to do. Yes, Carol, it is the same if you're left-handed. All right, so we are going to dab with the corner of the brush, and then we are going to dab on the other corner of the brush. So you could see that I am not doing the, I'm not stippling up and down on the flat surface of the brush. I'm dabbing on the corner of the brush, and this way I am going to establish interesting shape to the outside of my flower form. If I need to, I can pick up some more color and dab that on. I'm not trying to fill it in completely. But if you are holding your paintbrush like a pencil, this will be super hard for you to do. So just relax and kind of go with it. I'm going to do the same thing on this larger cluster of flowers. And I'm really only concerned that I have the outside edge of my flower has an interesting shape to it. I don't want it solid. I want there to be some irregular marks, and I want there to be some interest to my flower form. If you think about painting hydrangea petals at this point, you're worrying way more than you need to. We're just dabbing some color on, establishing the shape of our flower forms. That's all we're doing right now. So I'm going to let you work on that. Let's see, Genevieve, I would probably paint it vertically. All right, so I'm going to, you need to see it close up. Okay, I probably should quit trying to read the comments, but.
Well, it's helpful because then I don't have to ask. See?
Okay, so there you go. There's a little bit of a close up. It's not beautiful at this point, but it will be. All right, so I'm going to, while you all are doing that, I'm going to take my heat gun and I'm going to dry this just to set it in place.
We can't really zoom in the overhead. It doesn't go any closer on Zoom, unfortunately, for those who are asking. So he'll just have to, he'll hold it up when it comes time for things to see.
Yeah, I could do that again right now. So holding it up. There you go. Again, it's not beautiful at this point, but it is some blue color on our flowers. Don't overthink this, people. This is the kind of painting that people tend to start wanting to paint flower petals. And they think that's what they've got to be working on. And this is just dabs of color on the surface. Nothing more. Don't try to make it more than that. All right, so this is all dry, and we're going to move on to a little bit of our glass vase. And what we're going to do here, I'm going to take some yellow ochre and some yellow light, and I'm just going to mix these together. It's more yellow light than yellow ochre, and I'm going to add a little Prussian blue to this. And if you remember your basic elementary color mixing, yellow and blue will make green. All right, so you can see I've made a green color here. I want it darker, so I'm adding more blue to it. And I'm just mixing this with my brush, adding a little water just to make it move a little bit easier. I want to add a little dioxazine purple to this to darken it a little bit more and just make the color a bit more interesting. So before you're confused, let me tell you what I've mixed again. I have yellow light or yellow medium, some yellow ochre, and Prussian blue. And then I added a little bit of dioxazine purple to make the color a little darker. Adding water so that it is easier to move. Again, a little bit more blue, a little bit more purple here. Just adjusting the color so that I've got a very nice dark blue-green color. All right, everybody watching, because this is going to start some of our fun stuff. Okay, holding the brush again, where my pinky meets my palm, gripping the brush at the end of the handle, and I'm going to begin to dab some dark color where the flowers meet the vase. Okay, I'm going to hold this up real quick so that you can see very clearly that it is not a straight line. I just dabbed that color up under there to create the shadow where the flowers are kind of hanging over my vase. Okay, I'm going to rinse my brush in water, and I'm going to come back and I'm just going to dab at the base of that color. Beginning to soften it a little bit. I'm going to pick up a big flat brush. This is a 3/4 inch flat brush, and I've just got water on it. There's no paint in it, and I'm just going to begin to dab some of this color and move it down a little bit. I'm not painting anything specifically. I'm just moving some of that blue-green color down. Okay, so this is what I have at this point. So you work on that, and because we're not done, this is just the beginning stages of what's going to happen on our vase. So one thing I am going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pick up a little bit of my dark green color, and I'm just going to neaten up the edge of the vase there. And I'm just going to leave that alone. So I've got a nice clean edge there, and I'm not too worried about what's happening over here on this side yet. So I'll give you all a minute to catch up with that. Okay, the colors again for my green. I can use yellow ochre, yellow light, and then add Prussian blue to that to make it a nice dark green color. And then I added some dioxazine purple to make it a little bit darker. We're not done with our dark green yet, but this is just the first stage. So we kind of work on the whole painting in stages. So I'm giving you a minute just to catch up with me. And this is, I know, quite a bit different than the way that Jesse and Kirsten paint. So I know it's a little unusual for you, but I know that you all can do this.
And the yellow ochre was made up of what again? If they couldn't find that, it's just a regular yellow with.
Yeah, a bright primary yellow and dioxazine purple will give you yellow ochre.
Gotcha.
It's one of those weird things that you can make yellow ochre from bright yellow and purple, but that's how you get to it.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to quickly dry this. So this will give people just another minute to catch up.
Sure.
I always like to dry things when it's looking really good. Okay, so I'm going to just take my big 3/4 inch brush, and I'm going to pick up a little bit more Prussian blue and a little bit of Dioxazine purple and add that to my green mix that I already had. And we're going to thin it down with some water again. And I'm just going to reinforce some of this dark green color. This is going to make it a little bit bluer, just dabbing that color on right up underneath the flowers. And then with even more water on the brush, we're just going to wash that color down a little bit. And mine's looking very, very blue here. So I'm going to green that up by adding just a little bit of yellow to it. And you can see there that I've got a much greener color now. And I'm just softening that down with some water on my brush. Just moving some color around. I'm not really trying to paint anything or make it look specifically like anything at this point.
And you're not working on the stems or anything yet. You're just pulling the color down with some water.
This is just some color. This is not really anything in particular. Don't try to paint it to look like something. This is just some blues and greens in our vase. And then once I've got some color on there, I'm going to dry this again. Okay, let me caution you, if you're using a heat gun, make sure to keep moving it because you don't want to hold it in one place too long, or you can blister or scorch your paint, and that will not be a good look. All right, are we ready to move on to some more flower painting? Yes, I think we are.
All right.
All right, so I'm rinsing out my number 12 flat brush, and I'm going to, I want a different blue than I used originally. So I'm going to pick up some ultramarine blue and some Prussian blue together on my brush. And I'm not going to thin this as much as I did to apply the first kind of base layer of paint. All right, so this is a different color blue and a different level of opacity. This is much more opaque than the first layer. So when I start to paint this on, you can see that it immediately looks different. So once again, I'm holding my brush where the pinky meets the palm and dabbing with the corners of the brush so that I get interesting shapes. And again, I'm not filling in the entire flower form. Just kind of dabbing and patting some of this color on. I'm leaving some of the original color visible at the outside edges of the flower. Don't want to fill it in solid. Nothing is less attractive than a solid blue ball that's supposed to represent a hydrangea. You want some marks that are interesting to the eye and some light areas, just some interesting shapes going on at the outside edges of the flower form. If you run out of paint, don't be afraid to pick up some more paint, and you can add a little bit of water as you need to move the color around a little bit. Okay, we're going to leave that alone at this point. I'm going to hold it up so you can get a close-up look at it. Okay, colors used again, ultramarine blue and Prussian blue picked up together on the brush. Add a little bit of white, not white, add a little bit of water to thin that down a little bit. And again, it's important that you have interesting little edges to your flowers. You can see the transparent blue and you can see the more opaque blue. Those are all important things to look at.
And then how did you make the blue-green at the base of the flowers again? They were just
This
asking
color?
about. Yeah, the one that at the base, yeah, there.
That's the Prussian blue and ultramarine blue. The two colors that it's the same blue all over the flower.
Yeah, and then down on the vase.
The vase that's a mixture of yellow light or medium yellow, Prussian blue, and dioxazine purple. That's what gives us this kind of blue-green color.
Yep.
All right, so now here's a fun thing that everyone seems to love. And if you overdo this, this is what your painting's going to be about instead of it being about some hydrangeas. But everybody seems to love these little kind of runs and drips that you can see here and over here. So I'm going to show you how to do that, but you have to promise that that's not going to be what this painting is all about. So I have plenty of water on my number 12 flat brush, and I have a little bit of the Prussian blue and ultramarine blue. It's mostly water, a little bit of blue, mostly water. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dab a little bit of paint on in a couple of places, and then I'm going to rinse my brush out, and I'm going to tip my canvas up a little bit, and I'm going to dab some more water on so that this becomes very transparent. Add a little bit more water out here at the edges, and I'm just going to let some of that run a little bit. And this is kind of running down the edge of where the flowers kind of end and the vase starts. This whole little edge, we're just kind of losing a little bit there and letting a little bit of that drip down here. But that's going to be a little much where it's just dripping out of those flowers. So I'm going to take my shop towel and I'm just going to kind of blot that back a little bit. And so now I've got a little bit of color there, and then I've got more color just dripping down the vase. So I've kind of lost the edge of the vase a little bit, and that's perfectly fine. That's in fact what I want to have happening there. And then on the right side of my canvas, I'm going to thin down a little bit of dioxazine purple with some of the blue that's in my brush. And this is going to be very pretty because I'm just dabbing some transparent purple on. And then I'm just going to add more water to this. And I'm going to let that kind of run down the edge of the vase there. And I'm just moving this with some water and just letting it run. And where it starts to be a little bit more intense than I really want it to be, I'm just going to blot it back with my shop towel. And then I can come back and just soften that a little bit. letting gravity do its job, and just kind of streaming a little bit of this purple right down the edge of the vase, just a little bit. All right, and I'm going to hold this up so that you can take a closer look at this. So you can see that I've kind of got a little runny mess here going on with some purple, and there's a little runny mess over here that's going on with some blue. Okay, so I'm going to let you all catch up with that, and we're just going to wait for just a few minutes.
I think everybody's doing okay. What brush were you using again?
A number 12 flat brush for that. It's mostly water there. And then I'm going to dry this a little bit. And for everybody in class, I know this is going super fast for you, and I am sorry that it is going fast for you, but this will be available to watch after the class is over. It will go up online, and you can watch it at your leisure, and you can catch up and pause the video and work at your own pace. All right, so we are now going to we're going to paint some stems in our vase. And so I'm going to use a little yellow light and Prussian blue.
Andy, I don't know if you can see folks on your screen or not, but I get this gallery view, you know, of people painting, and it's so fun to see everybody painting along.
Okay.
I can see.
I'm only seeing what I'm doing, so I can't see what everybody's doing.
Well,
right?
I can tell you, there's all kinds of people painting, and they seem to be having a good time. So we're doing it. We're doing something.
Okay, that's great. All right, so I'm back to my 3/4 inch flat brush, and I'm going to show you how to paint some stems down into your vase. Do not pick up a liner brush and try to paint some thin lines with a thin round brush. That's just not what we're about tonight. All right, so I've got my 3/4 inch flat brush, and I am holding it like a pencil, and I'm going to, this is my yellow light and Prussian blue, just brush mixed together, and I'm just tapping the brush down to the surface, and that's how I get one stem in there. I'm not doing anything very difficult. I'm going to turn my canvas a little bit to the side so that you could watch me do another one. So I'm just touching the edge of the brush down to the canvas. Touch, touch, touch as I go. I'm going to make this one go at a little bit of an angle. All right, I think I'm going to do this on my palette so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just touching the brush down and making a little mark, and then I'm moving my brush down and touching it and making another mark, touching down and making another mark. And that's a great way to get yourself a nice straight line if you're not adept at using a liner brush. And you don't have to be a really good painter to take advantage of these tricks. They work super well for everyone. And I'm not painting a million little stems in here. I'm just painting a few because we're going to cover these up and make them less apparent than they are right now. So I'm making a darker shade of green using Prussian blue, and I picked up a little bit of yellow ochre, and I'm just going to make a stem that's going to come down here and cross over another stem, just like that. So I've got a few little stems going on here in the vase, and if I want to, I could put another one that kind of meets this edge of the vase over here, and let that stem come up into the top there. All right, so that's enough stem going on. Easy peasy, and we're going to dry those stems. Okay, and somebody out there just thought the stems were the easiest thing that we did all night long. All right, so we're coming back to our vase, and what I want to do next, I'm wiping out my 3/4 inch flat brush, and I want to pick up a little bit of ultramarine blue and a little bit of titanium white. So again, I'm making a different shade of blue than we've used before. I didn't add any water to my brush. And here's what we're going to do with this light blue color. I'm going to start at the edge of the vase, and I'm just going to pull some light blue in from the outside edge. I'm lightening that color up because it looks too dark to me once I put it on my painting. There we go. It's more of a baby blue color. So just put this on, touch the brush down, and pull in a little bit. So with this kind of baby blue color, I'm going to just pull across, and you can see how this is kind of hiding some of those stems a little bit. I'm sorry, there you go. We had a little chat question pop up there and covered that up a little bit. All right, so I'm going to come across down here at the bottom a little bit, and I'm going to put a little more white out on my palette. So I'm out of white there. Okay, so here we go. Setting my brush down, and I'm just kind of pulling across a little bit, and you see how I have developed a nice little bit of a white highlight there. We're not done with the highlighting on our base, but I want to make sure that you all are pulling some color across, and it's helping to hide some of your stems a little bit and make them a little less prominent.
And can you go over again what colors you use to make this lighter blue again?
Yes, it's ultramarine blue and white. And
Okay,
of course,
easy.
my brush already had some color in it, so it's a little bit of a dirty color. And just kind of pulling some of that across. And we're going to leave this alone for a moment, and we're going to come back up to our flowers. And I have my number 12 flat brush, and I am going to use titanium white plus ultramarine blue, which is what I was just using, and add a little tiny bit of Prussian blue because I want to make a different color blue, something that's a little bit more interesting. Add just a little bit of water to this to make the paint move a little better for me. And I'm going to begin to develop some lighter flower petals on my hydrangeas. And again, I'm dabbing with one corner of the brush and then coming back and using the other corner of the brush. Not filling in completely, just making some blue petal shapes here and there on the flower form. This is, again, worrying more about the shape than trying to fill it in or paint individual flower petals. I've taught a lot of hydrangea paintings, and if I can just get people to quit trying to paint the flowers and just make interesting shapes, excuse me, they do a much better job, because it is only about the little mark that you put on the canvas. It's not about the whole painting. It's these little interesting marks, and like here I can come out from the edge of the flower form and I can make a few little marks like that, or up here I can come and make a few little dabs, and that's much more interesting than having a straight kind of smooth edge on my flower. So hold that up close for one of our patented zoom in on the painting. So you can see those little extra dabs out at the edge. And the shape of the outside edge is the most important part of your flower. It's just like when you're painting animals, all of the information about the animal fur is just telegraphed by the outside of the silhouette of the animal. If you have some long stray hairs going, everybody knows that animal is a long-haired animal, and you don't have to give them any more information than that. All right, I'm gonna wipe my brush out. And I'm gonna pick up some more titanium white. And I'm gonna add a little water to this. And my white is going to turn a little bit of a very, very pale blue, which is perfectly fine. And we are going to add some highlights to our flower form. I'm not covering the entire flower with these white highlights. Bring that up there so you could see. There are a few of them on there, but it doesn't cover the whole flower. They're concentrated in one little area that has a beautiful shape to it. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here, just adding in a few of these brighter highlights. Okay, that was not difficult. It was fast, but not difficult. So I'm going to wipe off my big 3/4 inch flat brush. So I'm taking out most of the paint that was on it, and I'm picking up a little bit of white, very dry white, and I'm loading it on the back of the brush. So you can see that there's a nice amount of paint on the brush, but only on one side of the brush. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to first add a little bit of a white highlight right on the left-hand edge of the vase. All right, so that cleans up that edge of the vase, and it's not, let me bring it up so you can see. I didn't go over where I had that little runny edge, but I've cleaned up the edge of the vase so that the viewer knows right where that edge of that glass is. All right, I'm going to take the same white on my brush. Again, no water, just white on one side of the brush, and I'm going to add a nice highlight on my vase. So I do that by laying the brush flat down on the surface and pulling in one direction. And then in the opposite direction. So I've created a mark that is nicely broken up. Look at the outside edges of that highlight, all of that sparkle and shimmer that you see there. And again, I took the brush, I laid it flat down on the surface and just pulled. Right, don't try to make it more than it is. And I can add another little sparkly highlight on the vase, just like that. Crystal, it is like a palette knife, but I know that some of you who are regular Monday night painters hate the palette knife as much as anything you can imagine. So I thought I'd just show you a way to get away with doing it with a paintbrush. And now those that are doing it and don't like it, you can hate that as much as you hate the palette knife. All right, so what Andy would do at home is he would dry this so that that doesn't go anywhere. And then he would, but I'm not gonna do that right now. So I'm gonna take a little bit more paint on the brush, and I'm just gonna come in there and lay in just a little bit more of a solid highlight within that beautiful broken edge, okay? So you can see that now we've got a very, very nice bright highlight on our vase. I've got a lesser highlight over here, and then just a nice bright edge right over there on the left side of the vase. Okay, so we are fast approaching the home stretch. And I know some of you are fast approaching the, you're not ready for the home stretch yet.
How is everybody
okay.
doing so far? They doing, you guys doing okay?
I think they're probably doing a whole lot better than they think they are.
I think they probably are. I see a lot of people painting, so that's a good thing.
Okay.
They probably should
That
keep
is
painting and not take time to chat with me. They should just keep going.
That's fine. Do not chat with John.
That's right.
So I'm taking some alizarin crimson and thinning it down with water. And this is going to seem eerily like what we did with our blue hydrangeas. And I'm going to paint a little bit of a kind of a, just for lack of a better term, we're going to paint a little bit of a pink hydrangea in here. And I'm just dabbing in and around some of this vivid kind of burgundy color. And again, holding my paintbrush where my pinky meets my palm and dabbing with the corner of the brush. That color is too strong, so I'm thinning it down with some more water because I really do just want this to be very transparent at the outside edges, where I'm going to make some beautiful little shapes. And then I'm going to take the same thinned color and I'm going to dab some of that over here. And I'm going to add just a little bit of it right over there. All right. I'm picking up a little dioxazine purple. And I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to dab some transparent purple on. I'm going to let that fade out past my flower form here. I'm sorry, I missed that last question about the color.
Yeah,
this was alizarin crimson, and now I'm just adding a little bit of dioxazine purple in a few places, and that's just adding more visual interest and just making my flowers a little prettier. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, I am going to sneak in a little bit of an original formula FolkArt color, and this is bright pink. And the reason I'm using this is because this is almost a kind of a fluorescent pink color, and it is virtually impossible to mix these sort of unnatural shades of fluorescent colors. So we just use a little bit of a cheat color here, and I'm going to dab on some of this very intense bright pink to make some bright pink flower petals. And this is kind of like getting dressed to go out. These are the last things that you put on. These are your earrings. So this will be just some beautiful bright pink accents. And I did add a little bit over here and a little bit up here, not too much. This color is bright pink, and then I'm going to take some titanium white and make a nice soft pink color. And I'm going to add some highlights of a softer pink. So now I have tucked in a nice pink hydrangea in between my blues. And you can see where I've added a little bit of pink and purple over here. You can see that there's some purple in here. Over here, there's more purple and a little bit of pink. This is all just creating visual interest to your painting. And then I want to show you one other little thing that I like to do, which is add a little color, which is just a little bit outside of the color scheme that you're working in. It's just a little something that you do to catch the viewer's eye in your painting. And so I have some Napthol Crimson on my palette, and I'm going to pick up some Napthol Crimson, and I'm going to just add a little dab of this down here at the bottom right-hand side of my vase. And that is just very, very bright red. Put on there just to catch the viewer's eye. And then I'm going to repeat that with just a little dab or two of red here in the flowers. Again, this is just something to catch the viewer's eye. You don't want to overdo it, but I'll bring it up and let you see that you can see the little bits of red that I put there. And then also down here at the right-hand side of the vase. Whew. Is everybody exhausted? Because that was an awful lot of painting to do in just about an hour.
Yes, but I think people were saying on here how clear the instructions were and really fun class and really beautiful. So people had a lot of fun. And I do think that, just from personal experience, I always find it better to go back and watch, even if you painted along this time, as Andy will tell you, always go back and try it again. And
Yes. Let me give you my as my opera teacher would say, let me cast my pearls. When you learn something, you think you understand it, and if you will go back and you will repeat this painting within 5 to 7 days, you will amaze yourself at how much more you remember and how much you're able to put into practice by actually repeating it. You will forget so much if you wait more than a week to do this. So I would recommend that it's Monday night. So for Wine Wednesday, you can get yourself a nice adult beverage, sit down and do this painting again when you're watching the replay at your own pace. And I think you will enjoy working a little bit slower and a little bit more deliberately, and you will have a much, much better painting. So I feel like I want to keep painting with you all. It seems like this hour has just flown by, but Jesse will be back with us, I think, next week. And so I want to thank Michaels for allowing us to do these classes on Monday and for letting me be a guest teacher tonight. And so I hope that you learned a little something tonight, and maybe something you hadn't thought of before, a new way of doing something, or if nothing more, a new way to hold your paintbrush so that you paint a little bit differently. And so if you would like to,
yep.
I'm sorry, I was gonna encourage people to post their paintings to the Let's Paint with Plaid Facebook group so that we can see what you all did. Because I love to see what people painted, because I didn't get to see anything you did tonight.
You know what, Andy, you're exactly right. And I do want, he mentioned the Let's Paint with Plaid Facebook group. So jot that down or whatever, so that you remember, because Andy does a lunch and learn session very much like this one every Tuesday and Thursday, pretty much. He is in that group teaching all kinds of things. So if you're interested in painting like this, particularly in learning specifically from Andy and the way that he teaches, go to the Let's Paint with Plaid Facebook group, sign up, and then you're going to get alerted. Make sure you have it set to alert you when we go live, and you're going to be every Tuesday and Thursday. He's live in the group teaching lessons. Plus, we also go live on our Facebook page on Wednesdays and Fridays with just general crafts. So if you're not following Plaid Crafts on Facebook, please do so, both the group and the main page. Okay?
Yes, I will let everyone know that I will be teaching this Wednesday's live stream on the Plaid Crafts channel, and we'll be doing a very, it's a different style of painting, much more of a watercolor style of painting, and then we finish it up with some pen and ink. So it's a very different technique and something that I think people will enjoy doing. So we'll be doing that on Wednesday, in addition to our Tuesday and Thursday live streams.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I would say that probably wraps us up, right, Andy? Are we all done?
I think we are absolutely finished up here. So thank you all for joining us tonight.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Good night.
Bye.